Hi, everybody, and welcome back, everyone, to Dark Readings News Desk live from Black Hat 2023. We're glad to have you with us for our series of conversations about the latest research being presented from Black Hat this year. Up next, I am thrilled to welcome Steve Kupchak. He is with Akamai and will be presenting new research at Black Hat this year titled Lifting the Fog of War, Monitoring, Identifying, and Mitigating MSRPC. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I know that you say everybody already knows MSRPC, very familiar with it. For those of us who are a little behind, can you explain to us what it is and why the vulnerability matters?
Yeah, so RPC is like a way for programs to expose capabilities to other programs to call. So it stands for remote procedure calls, and it just allows for like an inter-process communication way. MSRPC is just the implementation inside Microsoft, inside Windows, sorry, by Microsoft for RPC. And the reason it's so crucial is because MSRPC is very integral in many parts of the Windows operating system.
Okay.
There are vulnerabilities in RPC, and if you look at Patch Tuesdays, and in Patch Tuesday notes from Microsoft, they usually have some fixes and CVEs for the RPC runtime, which implements all of that. But there are a lot of attacks and lateral movement techniques that are very common in the Windows domain landscape that are MSRPC based, and that's why the threat matters. So very basic attacks or common attacks like PSExec or WMI, they're all based on MSRPC, and that's why we did this research, because it's just so common and so frequent.
So how common and how frequent? Can you sort of give us an idea?
Yeah, so if you take a look at any network map of Windows, of a Windows domain, you'll have some traffic that is over RPC. In my talk tomorrow, I have actually an image of a network map that shows exactly that, because it's a common question. But if you take a look at even for attacks, if you take a look at almost any report about a ransomware breach, for example, that's the most common reports that I'm reading when I'm looking for reading news about malware. Most of the ransomware operators either use or have the capability for PSExec, for example. PSExec is an attack in Windows that allows for lateral movement, and it doesn't use any vulnerability. It just communicates with the service manager over RPC, creates a service, and then launches it. And most ransomware operators either have that capability or use that capability. That's an example for how common it is.
And so what is Microsoft doing?
Microsoft, with this case, I don't think Microsoft is doing a lot, because it's not a vulnerability. There's nothing to mitigate here. It's just it's a capability in Windows that is exposed. And the reason it is so easy to use is because it requires other stuff. So it requires authentication, for example. And the reason ransomware operators do it is because A, it's available because it's part of Windows and Windows needs it. But B, weak credentials and stuff like that is what actually allows the attack to work. Microsoft actually has some mitigations in place in Windows. They have like RPC firewall filters in the Windows firewall. So the capability is there because people aren't using it. That's what I'm hoping to bring out in my talk, actually. We're discussing that as well.
And do people know about this? Is it something widespread that is widely acknowledged throughout the cybersecurity community?
Could you rephrase that? Sorry.
Sure. Is this something that most people know about? You're saying this is something new that most people haven't heard of and aren't aware of?
No, I don't think it's anything new. The RPC filters, for example, are mostly undocumented, so people might be less aware of them. But RPC involvement and the commonality of those attacks is something people are aware of. Just that RPC is just another layer of encapsulation that you'll have to peel when you want to look for malicious incidents or when analyzing traffic. So it just makes it harder to work with.
So that's how teams are. If you could walk us through, how does an attack work? If you could give us sort of for instance, and what a threat actor could do with this sort of access.
Well, it really depends, because RPC is just a protocol.
Sure.
It just carries on other capabilities, other remote procedure calls. So what attackers can do with RPC depends on which RPC interface they're working with.
Okay.
So for example, with a service manager, they can query services or create or run services. That's how base exec attack works. With WMI, which is also somehow carried over RPC, just won't get into the details, they can launch remote processes with it. Or for example, there are vulnerabilities that are carried over MSRPC, like Petit Potam, which was pretty popular a year, something like that ago, is an authentication coercion attack. It utilized a vulnerability in the RPC interface for the encrypted file system to cause it to create outbound authentications that attackers could then relay in their next stage of attack. So the options that are available through MSRPC attacks is only limited by what the interface that they are using.
Wow. Okay, so how are teams, I hear that there's not a good detection strategy other than sort of threat hunting through incidents, and how are these teams going to be aware that they've been attacked this way?
Well, you don't have to see the attack in action to be able to detect its aftermath and effects. So for example, with most RPC attacks, for example, if we go back to the PSX example, it requires authentication. So threat hunting teams can work with logon events and other events in the Windows system to detect malicious activities or the launch of new processes, services. It all has events. What I'm going to show in my talk actually is using the ETW, the event tracing of the RPC runtime to see a bit more into the attack and see which operations are actually being called. And again, it's not a new feature. The feature has been there since a long time ago, and there's been some research about it. What I'm going to do in my talk is just take this, all the existing data that we have about ETW, RPC, and the attacks, and somehow try to conjure it into threat detection. And it's mostly informational. There's no anything novel, something that's like I discovered. And just take all the data and combine it to have some sort of threat detection.
So what are you hoping that the teams that attend, professionals that attend your talk, what are you hoping that they take back to their own SOC and their own shop?
I really hope that more people will start looking at, for example, the ETW events, to look into the RPC landscape, see under its hood, and use it as a threat detection. In Akamai, I actually pitched this idea, and this whole research was originated there. I pitched this idea to the threat hunting team, so they're going to use that and the products of the research in their threat hunting capabilities. And I hope that just more people do it.
I have one question for you that it's not based on your research, but I'm hoping you can sort of help me. There does seem to be now a trend toward a more proactive approach, which I'm seeing is resulting in recommendations for more siloed threat hunting in an RDP, threat hunting for supply chain. Are you seeing that? Is the more proactive sort of approach like that becoming more mainstream than maybe it had been?
I'm not sure. I used to be on a threat hunting team, but I'm no longer there. I'm on the security research team, so I don't really know about trends in threat hunting. But yeah, proactive approach is, in my opinion, is good, because you want to be on the lookout all the time for threats, for attacks. You can't just wait for alerts to come at you. You have to go and look for them.
And so you've reported this to Microsoft, or they're aware of your research?
It's not a vulnerability. There's nothing to actually report there. We did, in my team, we had a lot of offensive research into MSRPC as well. We found vulnerabilities in the RPC runtime, in some RPC services, even in the security mechanism of RPC itself. And those were reported to Microsoft. It was actually last year. And we presented that at last year's DEF CON and Hexacon. But this talk is just taking the existing defensive capabilities Microsoft already provided us, and then just combining it with threat detection. So there's no attack there.
Understood. Well, thank you so much for giving us an overview. And tell us, when is your talk tomorrow so our audience can tune in?
Thank you. It's tomorrow at 1:30.
1:30. All right. So be there. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.